Okay, close your eyes for a second. Take one slow breath. Now open them. You are not in your bed. You are not hearing an alarm. There is no blue light from a phone, no distant traffic, no refrigerator humming in the next room. In fact, there is no next room. You wake because you are cold, dangerously cold. The kind of cold that reaches you before thought does, before memory, before language. It enters through your face, your hands, the thin space between your neck and the hide pulled over your shoulder. Your eyes open into almost total darkness. For a few seconds, you have no idea where you are. The air smells wrong. Smoke, wet stone, old animal fat, damp earth, human breath, something sweet and rotten near the back wall. Your back is pressed against hard ground covered with dry grass and fur. Your hands are numb. Your jaw aches from clenching through the night. And close by, you hear breathing that is not yours. Welcome to 20,000 years ago. You are somewhere in the region that will one day be called southwestern France during the coldest stretch of the last ice age. Far to the north, enormous ice sheets hold enough frozen water to lower the seas by more than 100 meters. Coastlines lie far beyond their modern edges. Britain is not an island. Herds move across open country that will someday be farms, roads, towns, and borders. Mammoths are alive. Woolly rhinoceroses are alive. Cave lions still hunt in Europe. And you, for the next 24 hours, are going to live as one human being might have lived in the late Paleolithic. Not as a brute, not as a half-formed version of a modern person. You have the same kind of brain you have now. The same capacity for fear, tenderness, jealousy, humor, grief, memory, and wonder. But you have none of the systems that normally stand between you and the natural world. No phone, no grocery store, no tap water, no matches, no metal, no writing, no hospital, no rescue team. The only help that exists is your family, your companions, and perhaps 30 or 40 people who know your face well enough to share food with you. Everything you need must be remembered, found, made, carried, repaired, or given to you by another person. So listen carefully. The fire is fading. The day has already begun. The first thing you feel is cold. Not, I should grab a sweater cold. Not even the heating broke cold. This is cold that turns fingers into stiff, clumsy tools. Cold that makes the inside of your nose sting. Cold that punishes every exposed patch of skin. You are lying on your side, knees pulled toward your chest, beneath several animal hides. The hides smell rancid and smoky. Their edges are hard with old grease. One still has a patch where the hair has rubbed away. They are unpleasant. They are also the reason you are alive. You pull them tighter. Above you is rock. You are not deep inside a cave, but beneath a broad limestone overhang. The ceiling slopes low toward the back. The stone holds a little of yesterday's warmth, but the entrance opens directly onto the winter air. The floor is uneven. It has been softened with layers of grass, pine boughs, hide, and debris accumulated over many stays. Beneath the bedding are flakes of stone, splinters of bone, fragments of charcoal, and things you do not want to identify in the dark. 3 meters away, in a shallow hollow ringed with stones, the fire is almost dead. That is the second thing you notice. A few embers pulse beneath gray ash. They give almost no light, but your body can feel the difference between the side facing them and the side facing the entrance. You are not alone. To your left, a person is curled beneath a hide. You see the rise and fall of a shoulder. On your right, two smaller shapes are pressed together. Farther back, someone snores softly, stops, then begins again. You count 8 people in this sleeping space. Their names, if translated, might be short sounds, nicknames, kinship terms, or words connected to a feature, an event, an animal, a place. But you do not need names to recognize them. You know the old woman by the pale scar crossing her forearm. You know the hunter by the way his injured left foot turns outward. You know the child by the tiny beads tied into her hair. Right now, identity is less important than heat. The fire must not die. Fire is not just warmth. It is light, cooked food, hardened spear points, protection, dry clothing, smoke for preserving meat, charcoal for drawing, and a center around which frightened human beings can become a group. If it goes out, it may take hours to restart. You can strike suitable stones and catch a spark in prepared tinder. You can use friction if the wood, cord, technique, and weather cooperate. Or you can walk to another shelter and ask for embers, revealing that your own group failed at the most basic duty of winter. All of those options cost time and energy, so the easiest fire to make is the one you never allow to disappear. You push yourself upright. Your lower back complains. Your hip is numb where it pressed against stone. The ache is not dramatic. It is familiar, part of the background of being alive. There is no mattress, no chair designed for posture, no painkiller waiting in a cabinet. You crawl toward the pit, careful not to place your palm on a sharp flint flake. Next to the stones is a fuel pile, sorted by size. Dry grass and shredded bark, twigs no thicker than your finger, thicker branches, and several dense pieces saved for a long burn. This order is not obsessive. It is knowledge embodied in arrangement. You brush ash aside with a stick. There, a red point. You place a loose nest of dry fibers over it and lower your face until your cheek nearly touches the ground. Then you blow. Not hard. Hard breath scatters ash and cools the ember. You send a narrow, patient stream of air. The red point brightens. Smoke curls into your eyes. They water. You turn your head, inhale, and blow again. A second ember wakes. Then a third. The fibers darken. A line of orange travels along the bark. For one anxious second, nothing happens. Then a flame appears. Small, blue at its base, trembling. You feed it 2 twigs, then 3. You wait until each catches before adding the next. The little flame becomes a hand-sized fire, then climbs into the thicker sticks. Warmth touches your face. The shelter brightens enough for you to see soot on the ceiling, bundles hanging from pegs, hides folded along the wall, red marks on limestone, and a bone tool lying dangerously close to someone's foot. Your hands shake as you sit back, not only from cold, from the small flood of relief that follows a disaster that almost happened. You kept the fire alive. No one applauds. Most of the group did not wake. That does not make the act less important. Here, the most important victories are often invisible. A coal survives. A child does not wander. A cut stays clean. A storm is noticed early. A strip of meat dries before it rots. Survival is made from events that never become emergencies. Now that there is light, look at yourself. You are wearing layers made from animal hides, not crude blankets thrown over the body, but clothing shaped by people who understand winter, because mistakes kill. Your inner layer is soft hide, worn with the fur facing inward to trap warm air. The outer layer has fur facing out and overlaps at the chest. It is closed with cords made from sinew and strips of leather. Around your waist, a belt holds a flint flake, a small pouch, and a smooth stone you have carried so long that your thumb finds its hollow automatically. Your feet are wrapped in fitted hide. Inside is dry grass, crushed and replaced when it becomes damp. There are no thick rubber soles. You feel every ridge beneath you. That sensitivity helps you walk quietly, but one sharp edge can still cut through. Your clothing is valuable because it contains weeks of labor. First, an animal had to die. Then the skin had to be removed without ruining it. Flesh and fat were scraped away. The hide was stretched, dried, worked, dampened, rubbed with fat, perhaps smoked, then softened again and again. Bone awls opened holes. Needles pulled sinew through them. Every seam represents stored time. You are filthy by modern standards. Your hair is matted with smoke and grease. Soot lives in the lines of your hands. Your fingernails are dark. Your teeth feel rough. You smell of sweat, ash, animal hide, and yesterday's blood. But clean here has a different meaning. You brush parasites from seams. You rinse when water and weather allow. You scrape dirt from skin. You use smoke, fat, plants, and sunlight. You know which stagnant pool to avoid and which upstream patch is safer. Still, bacteria are everywhere, even though you have no word for them. Infection is a presence you understand by consequence. Redness that spreads, heat beneath the skin, swelling, pus, fever, a wound that begins as an annoyance and ends as a death. Your body carries evidence of this life. A white line across one palm where a stone edge slipped years ago. A thickened toe that may have broken and healed crooked. Small burns on the forearm. Strong shoulders from carrying. Dense legs from walking over uneven country every day. You are not a superhero. You are not naturally immune to pain or fear. You are capable because you began learning before you can remember. At 3, you watched adults choose firewood. At 5, you learned which berries make the stomach cramp. At 7, you could read the difference between an old track and a fresh one. By adolescence, you had seen animals opened, people injured, children born, and bodies buried. Knowledge entered through repetition, imitation, correction, embarrassment, praise, and consequence. The group begins to wake. A child sits up, hair flattened on one side, and moves straight toward the heat. An older man coughs for a long time. Smoke irritates his lungs, but the cold outside is worse. A woman presses a hand to the ash, then to a baby's cheek, judging temperature with the only instrument available, experienced skin. The oldest woman rises last. She may be around 50. Her face is lined, one tooth is missing, and 2 fingers on her right hand no longer close properly. By modern standards, she is not very old. Here, she is a library. She remembers the winter when reindeer arrived late. She remembers where water remained during a dry summer. She knows which family beyond the ridge can be trusted, how to turn bitter roots into food, how a breach birth once ended, and what kind of cloud means the valley must be left before snow closes the pass. If she dies, facts die with her. She kneels near the fire and sets a flat stone where it will heat gradually. On it, she places strips of dried meat, a lump of fat, and several roots already roasted once. The fat begins to soften. This is breakfast. No bowls of cereal, no coffee, no sugar except what the landscape rarely offers. You chew dried meat until your jaw aches and let a thumbnail-sized piece of fat melt against your tongue. Fat is precious. Lean meat alone will not reliably carry a body through winter. Fat means dense energy. It means warmth. It means a margin between a bad week and starvation. The food is divided by hands that know what each person needs. A nursing mother receives a little more. The coughing man gets a softened root. The children watch every movement, but they do not grab. Hunger is present, yet rules are present too. Human survival is not the story of the strongest individual taking everything. It is the story of groups discovering that sharing today can keep alive the person who feeds you tomorrow. A broad-shouldered man rises and walks to the mouth of the shelter. He does not simply check the weather. He reads the morning. He studies the color beneath the clouds, the direction of smoke, the hardness of the ground, and the sound of birds. He touches a crust of snow and crushes it between finger and thumb. He looks toward the valley, then toward the exposed ridge. You follow. Outside, dawn has barely begun. The landscape is not a wall of ice. This place lies south of the great ice sheets, in cold, dry steppe and open woodland. Low grasses bend beneath frost. Juniper and scattered pine hold dark against the gray. Birch grows in sheltered pockets. A stream moves below, black where the current keeps it open. The air burns the throat. Your breath clouds in front of you, appearing and vanishing. The sun is a pale patch behind thin cloud. Far across the valley, several dark points move slowly. Animals, perhaps horses, perhaps reindeer, too distant to know. Behind you, the limestone cliff contains other shelters. A thread of smoke rises from one opening several hundred meters away. Another opening is dark. Neighbors. They may be relatives. They may share a seasonal meeting place. They may exchange stone, shells, pigment, stories, partners, and warnings. Or resources may be strained. An old insult may remain unresolved, and today may be a day to keep distance. There is no state, no police, no court standing above the groups. Trust lives in memory. Reputation is portable. A generous family may find help years later. A violent person may discover that no camp welcomes him when winter closes in. The hunter points toward the valley floor. Then he speaks a few words. You do not need a translation. Tracks were seen yesterday. Meat is low. The weather may turn by evening. You are going out. Before you leave, water. Two people walk down to the stream, carrying containers made from hide and possibly animal stomach. You go with them. The slope is slick. Every trip down spends energy. Every return carrying water spends more. That is why the shelter is not chosen only for comfort. Distance to water matters. Wind matters. Sunlight matters. Escape routes matter. Nearby fuel matters. At the stream, an adult breaks a skin of ice near moving water. You crouch and drink from cupped hands. The cold hurts your teeth. You force yourself to continue because thirst hides in winter. A body loses water through breath and work, even when sweat is not obvious. Upstream, you see tracks crossing the bank. The group gathers around them. One print resembles a large dog's, but broader and less tidy. Wolf. Several animals, moving west during the night. Nearby are smaller paired marks from deer and the delicate scratch of a bird. To you, this is mud and snow. To the others, it is a page crowded with news. Who passed? How many? In what direction? How long ago? Whether they walked calmly or ran. Whether a hoof dragged. Whether a predator followed. The world does not need writing to be legible. It is writing itself all around you, but you have forgotten the alphabet. Back at the shelter, tools are being selected. You take a spear with a straight wooden shaft about as tall as you. A shaped flint point is fixed at one end with sinew and adhesive made from natural materials. You test the binding with your thumb. You carry a separate cutting flake wrapped at the dull edge. A small hide bag contains tinder, cord, and a little dried food. Another hunter carries a spear thrower, a shaped piece of bone or antler that extends the arm and can send a light projectile farther and harder than the hand alone. These are not random stones tied to sticks. They are technologies refined over generations. The stone point began far from here, at an outcrop known for good flint. Someone read the rock, detached a core, controlled angles and force, produced long blades, shaped an edge, and passed the result through hands and camps until it reached yours. That point contains geography, trade, craft, and social obligation. 4 hunters prepare to leave. A younger person joins to learn, carrying little. One woman comes as well. Today, she is the best tracker available and knows the Western Marsh. Paleolithic labor is patterned, but not a set of simple rules. Age, season, pregnancy, health, skill, opportunity, and local tradition all matter. The old woman touches the lead hunter's sleeve and points twice toward the sky. Be back before the weather changes. He nods. Then 6 of you move down the path, and the shelter disappears behind the ridge. At first, you walk quickly to create warmth. Your breath finds a rhythm with your steps. Hide creases at your knees. Frozen grass cracks softly beneath your feet. No one wastes sound. Silence on a hunt is not absolute. Bodies still breathe. Gear rubs. Snow compresses. The skill is to sound like the landscape instead of a group of anxious humans. The lead tracker chooses ground where footprints will not announce you. She avoids brittle brush. When crossing exposed snow, the group follows in nearly the same line. At a patch of mud, she stops. There are hoofprints. Cloven, medium-sized. Several animals. She crouches and touches the edge of one impression. The sides are crisp. A few grains have fallen inward, but no new frost has settled. She picks up a pellet of dung, breaks it, studies moisture, and smells it. Fresh enough. Red deer passed after the coldest part of the night. You look at the tracks and see depressions. She sees bodies. Perhaps 3 females, 1 younger animal, and a larger stag. She sees their pace. She sees where they pause to feed. The group turns southeast. You begin to understand that hunting is mostly not throwing a spear. It is walking, waiting, looking, deciding not to move. It is knowing wind direction, so scent does not arrive before you do. It is predicting where an animal wants to be several hours from now. It is conserving strength for a moment that may never come. 40 minutes pass. The tracks enter scrub where progress slows. A branch has been bitten cleanly. Bark is rubbed from a young tree at antler height. Beneath it, a tuft of coarse hair is caught. The youngest member reaches for it. The tracker stops his hand. First, look around. The lesson is silent. Every interesting object can pull attention away from danger. Predators read the same trail you do. You scan the brush. Nothing. Only then does she let the child take the hair. Farther on, the group finds blood. Not much. 3 dark drops on snow. Excitement moves through everyone, then fades. The tracker examines the pattern and shakes her head. Old blood. Probably a minor injury, perhaps from antler or stone. Not enough to weaken an animal. The wind shifts. Everyone notices at once, because everyone has been monitoring it. The lead hunter lifts damp fingers, then gestures north. You circle wide to stay downwind. This costs another half hour. Energy is the hidden currency of the entire day. Every slope climbed must eventually be paid for in food. Every detour, every hour exposed to cold. A failed hunt does not merely bring back nothing. It consumes yesterday's stored calories and leaves less strength for tomorrow. Modern life teaches you to think of time as money. Here, Movement is food. Heat is food. Attention is food. Even fear costs food, because a frightened body burns what it may not be able to replace. At the top of a low rise, everyone drops into a crouch. Below, partly hidden among birch, a stag grazes with two females. Steam drifts from their noses. The stag raises its head every few bites, chews, listens, and lowers it again. They are perhaps 100 meters away. Too far. The group studies the land. A shallow gully approaches from the east. Brush could hide 2 hunters. The others can circle west, not to surround the deer completely, there are too few of you, but to shape the direction of escape. The plan is communicated through pointing, eye contact, small hand movements, and a few breathed syllables. You enter the gully behind the lead hunter. From inside it, you can no longer see the animals. You must trust his judgment about where they will be when you emerge. Mud pulls at your footwear. A stone shifts beneath your palm. Once, your belt catches a twig, and the tiny snap sounds enormous. Everyone freezes. 10 seconds. 20. A raven calls overhead. The deer do not run. You continue. Near the gully's end, the hunter lowers himself until he is almost crawling. You do the same. Cold water enters at one wrist. Your shoulder begins to tremble from holding the spear ready. Finally, you see brown hide through branches. 30 meters, then 25. The stag takes 2 steps closer. Its antlers are not decoration. They are weight, weapon, age, and season written into bone. Its ears turn independently, sampling the world. You feel your pulse in your fingers. This animal is not a target. It is a living intelligence, trying as hard to survive as you are. The lead hunter raises his weapon. The movement is slow enough to be almost invisible. You bring your spear back. The shaft suddenly feels too long, too heavy, too obvious. Your palm is damp. You think of everyone waiting at the shelter. The stag lifts its head. Its entire body becomes still. One female stops chewing. For a second, the valley contains no movement at all. Then a gust turns the air. Human scent reaches them. The nearest deer explodes sideways. The stag follows. The lead hunter throws. His point grazes the animal high on the shoulder and spins away. Another projectile vanishes into brush. You release yours too late. It strikes a branch with a hard crack. The deer are gone, not fading slowly into the trees, gone in 3 seconds, leaving shaking branches and a few clods of kicked earth. You stand frozen, still looking at the place where food used to be. No one curses the universe. No one delivers a speech. The hunters retrieve their weapons and inspect damage. Your point has chipped along one edge. The lead hunter's point carries hair and a thin smear of blood, but the tracker studies the ground and shakes her head. The wound is shallow. Following could take the entire day with little chance of success. This is important. The dramatic hunt you imagine always ends in a kill, because stories remember the kill. Reality remembers many empty walks, many glimpses, many missed throws, many hours spent following prints that dissolve on hard ground. Large game hunting can bring enormous reward, but it is unreliable. The group survives because it combines strategies: gathering plants, trapping small animals, fishing where possible, collecting eggs, scavenging opportunities, storing fat, sharing across households, and remembering seasonal abundance. You feel shame, not abstract disappointment, personal failure. Your throw was late. The younger learner saw it. The lead hunter takes your spear, turns the damaged point toward the light, and demonstrates the angle at which you should have released. His correction is brief. Then he hands it back. There is no time to protect your ego. Skill matters more than the feeling of already being skilled. The group moves on. An hour later, tracks appear near the edge of open grassland. Wild horses. A small band passed toward water, perhaps recently. The wind is favorable, but the ground offers little cover. The hunters wait behind a rise. They watch birds. They watch the grass. They watch clouds gather above the western ridge. Then, in the distance, the horses appear. 5 adults and a younger animal. Broad bodies, heavy winter coats, dark legs. They move steadily, not directly toward you, but near enough that a careful approach might work. This time, the plan is different. 2 hunters circle far around and expose themselves deliberately. The horses turn away from them, toward a narrow corridor between a steep bank and dense brush. You and 2 others wait near its end. Minutes become painful. You hear nothing. Then hoofbeats. Soft at first, a vibration more than a sound. The animals enter the corridor at a trot, nervous but not panicked. The first passes beyond range. The second changes direction. The younger one hesitates, crowded by an adult. The lead hunter rises and launches his spear with the thrower. It strikes behind the ribs. The horse lunges forward. Another hunter throws and hits the upper leg. You aim not at the animal's current position, but where its chest will be. You throw. The shaft leaves cleanly. Your point enters low in the side. The horse runs. All of them run. For a moment, you think nothing has changed. Then the wounded animal begins to fall behind. The group follows, not sprinting blindly, tracking, saving breath, watching blood appear on grass, then vanish, then return. A wounded large animal is dangerous. A kick can shatter a thigh. Teeth can tear. Desperation makes every creature unpredictable. For more than an hour, you walk and sometimes jog. Sweat gathers beneath your hides. You want to remove a layer, but stopping means losing distance, and damp clothing will become a threat when movement ends. The blood trail thickens. At last, in a hollow protected from wind, you find the horse standing alone. Its head hangs low. Its sides heave. The rest of the herd has left. There is no triumph in the animal's eyes, no understanding of your family's hunger, only exhaustion and fear. The lead hunter approaches from the front to hold its attention. Another moves behind. A final thrust reaches the chest. The horse collapses. Its legs move once against the ground, then stop. The group waits. Some hunters may speak to the animal. Some may touch it in a familiar way. Whether this is ritual, gratitude, habit, or something that cannot be translated into modern categories, the moment is not casual. Death is never hidden here. To eat is to know exactly what eating costs. Warmth rises from the horse into cold air. Work begins immediately. Weather is changing. Predators may smell blood. Meat cools, stiffens, attracts flies in warmer seasons, and becomes harder to handle. The carcass is far too heavy to carry whole. You butcher it here. One person watches the surroundings while the others kneel. The best cutting flakes are selected. A hunter opens the hide with controlled pressure, careful not to puncture organs unnecessarily. Another begins at the legs, separating skin from tissue with short strokes. You hold one limb under tension. The smell arrives all at once. Blood, wet hair, stomach contents, iron, heat. Steam touches your face. Modern meat comes to you anonymous. Cut, chilled, wrapped, cleaned of context. Here, food still has eyes. It has weight. It resists the blade. Your fingers slip. The ground darkens beneath your knees. The hide is removed as intact as possible because it is not waste. It may become clothing, bedding, a container, a windbreak, a repair patch, or raw material for cord. Tendons are saved for sinew. Certain bones become needles, points, awls, handles, or fuel when wood is scarce. Teeth may become ornaments. Fat is gathered with almost obsessive care. The abdomen is opened. Organs are examined. An experienced person notices discoloration, cysts, smell, and signs that meat may be unsafe. There is no germ theory, but generations of observation have built rules. The liver is dark and glossy. The heart is dense. Kidneys lie in fat. Small pieces are eaten while still warm. You hesitate, then take one. The texture is soft, the taste mineral and strong. Your motor reflex says raw meat is dangerous. Sometimes it is. But cooking everything immediately requires fuel and time, and some fresh tissues are consumed at the kill. The stomach and intestines are not simply thrown away. Contents are removed. Membranes may be cleaned and used. The bladder can become a container. Nothing is automatically useful, but nearly everything is evaluated. You learn the anatomy through hands, where joints separate, which direction fibers run, how to free a shoulder without sawing bone, how to avoid dulling flint against stone. The blades are incredibly sharp, sometimes sharper at the edge than modern steel, but brittle. A cutting flake that slices hide beautifully may snap against bone. New flakes are struck as needed from a prepared core. The carcass becomes portions, heavy muscle from the hindquarters, strips along the back, organ bundles, fat, lower legs. The head may be processed here or carried if practical. Long bones rich in marrow are valuable, but weight competes with distance. This is not a perfect, nothing wasted fantasy. People make decisions. What can be carried? What will spoil? What is worth returning for? What must be left to ravens, wolves, foxes, and the soil? The answer changes with hunger, season, group size, and danger. Today, hunger is real. Loads are wrapped in hide and tied. Each adult takes what strength allows. Your bundle weighs perhaps 15 kilograms. Blood seeps through and warms your shoulder before cooling in the air. The damaged spear point is removed and stored for reshaping. A broken tool is not garbage until no smaller tool can be made from it. Before leaving, the group marks the location in memory. The forked birch, the angle of the bank, the black rock, the ridge shaped like a bent finger. There is still meat on the carcass. A second party may return if weather and predators allow. Then the youngest learner points toward the sky. Ravens. 3 of them circle lower than before. They've been watching. Soon, their calls may inform other scavengers. Ravens and humans repeatedly notice one another around death. A bird can reveal a carcass. A human kill can feed a bird. Wolves may follow both. You lift the meat and begin walking. The first 100 steps feel manageable. After a kilometer, the cord cuts into your shoulder. After 2, your lower back burns. No wheeled cart waits. No road, no pack with padded straps. You shift the bundle, rest it on your hip, trade loads for a while, and continue. The hunt is not over when the animal dies. Food only matters if it reaches the people who need it. Halfway back, you slip. Your foot lands on frozen mud beneath a skin of loose soil. The weight on your shoulder pulls sideways. You put out a hand. A buried flint flake opens the base of your thumb. For a moment, you feel pressure but no pain. Then blood fills your palm. Everyone stops. The cut is not deep enough to sever the thumb, but its edges gape. You stare at it with a modern person's knowledge of antibiotics, stitches, antiseptic, and emergency rooms, all of which do not exist. Your fear is rational. A hand wound threatens every task: tool making, carrying, climbing, sewing, eating, defending yourself. Infection can transform a small accident into fever and death. The tracker rinses the wound with relatively clean water from a container. It hurts sharply now. Dirt is removed. Pressure is applied with a cleanish piece of prepared material. The group may know plants, resins, honey where available, or other treatments learned through experience, though none are magic and not all traditions work. The most important treatment is simple. Clean it, close or cover it as best you can, stop the bleeding, and watch it. A strip of hide binds your palm. You test the thumb. It moves. Painful, but it moves. The others redistribute part of your load without complaint. This is not charity in the modern sense. Your temporary weakness is a group problem, just as another person's injury will become yours. You continue. Every few minutes, you check for blood soaking through. The cut changes the landscape. What was merely cold now feels contaminated. Every branch threatens the bandage. Every stumble becomes more serious. You think about mortality. It is tempting to imagine that people here routinely die at 30 and therefore do not fear death. That is wrong. Average life expectancy at birth is pulled down by infant and childhood death. A person who survives the dangerous early years may live for decades. Older adults exist, and their value can be enormous. People care for injured companions. Archaeological remains sometimes show severe injuries that healed, evidence that someone was fed and protected while unable to manage alone. Compassion is not a luxury invented after survival was solved. Compassion is one of the tools that made survival possible. The path rises. You hear voices before you see the shelter. Children appear at the ridge. One spots the blood-dark bundles and shouts. This is not a movie celebration. It is information moving through camp. People come to meet you because carrying the final slope is work. Hands take your bundle. Someone notices your bandage. The old woman looks directly into your eyes, then unwraps the hand without asking. She examines the cut. Her face reveals nothing. She cleans it again, more thoroughly than you would like, and binds it with fresh material. She points at you, the hand, then the fire. You will not join the return party. You will stay where the wound can be watched. You feel useless. That feeling, too, is ancient. But the camp does not divide people into useful and useless based on a single afternoon. A child consumes for years before providing at adult levels. A skilled elder may not carry heavy meat, but may save lives with memory. A wounded hunter can repair tools, teach, watch children, tend fire, and heal. Contribution changes across a lifetime. Belonging has to last longer than peak strength, or no group lasts at all. The shelter becomes intensely busy. Meat is placed on clean hides, flat stones, and suspended surfaces. Portions are separated according to how quickly they must be eaten. Thin strips will dry more readily. Fat is stored carefully. Bones wait to be cracked or worked. The hide is spread before it stiffens. Smoke thickens as greenish wood and selected material are added to influence heat and preservation. Smoke stings the eyes, coats surfaces, repels some insects, and slows spoilage. It also irritates lungs. Every solution carries a cost. The old woman directs without standing in the center. A gesture sends two adolescents for fuel. Another person begins cutting strips. A small child is moved away from sharp blades. The coughing man settles near the entrance to work where smoke is thinner. You sit with your injured hand raised. At first, you think everyone else has a single job. The hunter hunts. The woman scrapes hide. The elder tends children. But as minutes pass, you see constant switching. Someone cutting meat pauses to calm a baby. A toolmaker repairs a binding, then carries water. A child gathers dropped chips of wood, watches how sinew is split, and is corrected before reaching toward a blade. The best tracker consults with the old woman about clouds. The person who stayed at camp receives details of the kill location because a second group may go tomorrow. The camp is a machine with no replaceable parts. It runs on attention. Near the entrance, a young adult works a piece of flint. You move closer. He holds a prepared core and strikes near an edge with a hammer of stone or antler. The blow is precise. A long flake detaches, carrying ripples that record the force traveling through rock. He examines it. To you, it looks miraculous. To him, it is slightly too thick. He adjusts the platform and strikes again. Another blade comes away. Stone knapping is not pounding until something becomes sharp. It is managing fracture. The maker imagines a surface inside the stone, predicts how force will travel, prepares an angle, and commits. The object cannot be unbroken. Planning happens before impact. He lets you hold the core. Your bandaged hand prevents a proper grip, so you only study it. Scars from previous removals form a pattern. Each negative space is the memory of a blade that now exists elsewhere. Beside him lies a collection of tools with different shapes: scrapers for hides, burins for working bone and antler, backed blades, points, awls, and simple flakes sharp enough for immediate cutting. There is no hardware store, but there is specialization. One person may have exceptional knowledge of stone. Another understands animal movement. Another remembers plants. Another can shape a needle so fine it passes through tailored clothing. Another can calm conflict before it divides the group. Social skill is survival skill too. The youngest children learn through play. One taps two useless stones together, copying the napper's posture. Another arranges animal bones in a line. They chase, fall, argue, and are pulled away from the fire. Their play is not separate from education. It trains balance, timing, negotiation, observation, and imagination. A girl, perhaps 8 years old, carries a small bundle of fuel into the shelter. She is praised with a touch to the shoulder. Then an adult shows her that some pieces are damp and belong beside the fire to dry, not on it. Correction is immediate and concrete. Wood placed wrongly creates smoke. A track read wrongly loses food. A knot tied wrongly loses a tool. The environment grades every lesson. You are handed a damaged spear binding that can be repaired one-handed with help. Sinew has loosened where blood and moisture entered. You hold the shaft between your knees while another person separates fibers and warms adhesive near the fire. The smell is strong. You wind the fibers while he keeps tension. Your first turns overlap badly. He unwraps them. You begin again. No lecture. Again. The second attempt lies flatter. Adhesive is applied. The binding will dry into a strong composite joint. Wood, stone, fiber, and glue, each material compensating for another's weakness. You look around the camp. The same is true of the people. You are hungry again. The fresh meat has triggered appetite rather than satisfied it. A strip roasts on a heated stone. Fat spits into the fire, producing a smell so rich that every child watches. But no one eats without thought. This kill feels abundant only compared with the morning. Divide it among the group. Account for bone, hide, organs, spoilage, fuel, and the energy spent obtaining it. And abundance becomes a short window. Food is a calendar. A marrow bone can be opened today or saved. Meat can be roasted now, dried for later, frozen if conditions remain cold, smoked, shared with a neighboring group, or carried during movement. Each choice makes a claim about the future. Will the weather remain cold? Will animals stay nearby? Will the group move? Will relatives arrive? Will predators discover the storage place? You receive a cooked piece with browned edges and a center still red. There is no salt shaker, but ash and smoke flavor it. You tear with your teeth and use a flake for the tougher fibers. The taste is intensely satisfying because your body understands what it represents: protein, fat, heat. Another day. Plant foods are brought out too: roots, seeds, perhaps nuts kept from an earlier season, dried berries, inner bark, or other local resources. The exact menu depends on place and month. The idea that Paleolithic people ate only giant steaks is a modern simplification. Plants can provide carbohydrates, micronutrients, fiber, medicine, cordage, tinder, bedding, dyes, and knowledge of season. But plants demand expertise. Some edible roots resemble harmful ones. Some foods are safe only after soaking, pounding, or cooking. One part of a plant may heal, while another poisons. Harvest too early, and there is little energy. Harvest too late, and animals have already taken it. The old woman hands a root to a child and asks something. The child studies its skin, breaks it, smells the interior, and answers. The woman corrects her. She points to the fibers and the place where the stem joined. The lesson may prevent a stomachache. One day, it may prevent a death. Knowledge is not stored in books. It is stored in people, gestures, songs, routes, and objects arranged in familiar places. That makes memory a communal responsibility. A story about someone who ate the wrong mushroom is not merely a frightening tale. It is a field guide designed to survive in a mind. A chant about rivers may encode a route. A myth about an animal may preserve behavior important to hunters. Information lasts when it is memorable, repeatable, and socially meaningful. You begin to see why food cannot be separated from story. The first reindeer of a season is not only meat. It announces movement across the landscape. A flowering plant is not only color. It tells you what will ripen next. Salmon, migrating birds, eggs, berries, nuts, and herds form appointments in a calendar no one has written down. Missing an appointment can mean hunger for months. The weather outside darkens. Snow begins. Not a storm yet, only small, dry grains moving sideways. The second butchering party will not leave today. The remaining carcass belongs to the valley now. The hunters accept this without pretending the choice is painless. Meat will be lost. But risking several people in worsening weather could lose far more. Restraint is another survival skill, knowing when not to pursue. Knowing when not to cross, knowing when enough is enough. The snow thickens, then eases. Two people still need to fetch water. Melting snow is possible, but it consumes fuel and produces less water than you expect. The stream remains the cheaper source, if the path is safe. You stay behind because of your hand. For the first time, you notice the camp's less romantic systems, where people relieve themselves, where scraps are thrown, where hides drain, where water containers are placed, where old bones accumulate. A camp that ignores waste invites insects, scavengers, contamination, and disease. People may not understand microbes, but they can notice patterns. Water downstream from filth causes trouble. Rot attracts animals. A carcass beside sleeping space becomes dangerous. Still, no system is perfect. Smoke gathers beneath the overhang. Parasites live in fur and bedding. Meat touches hands that touched soil. Teeth wear and crack. A cough moves from person to person. Children put objects in their mouths. Disease is an invisible predator. Unlike a lion, it cannot be frightened by flame. Unlike a deer, it leaves no track before it arrives. An adult examines the coughing man. A hand touches his forehead, neck, and chest. He is given warm liquid, fat, rest, perhaps an herbal preparation. Some treatments help, some comfort, some may harm. Without controlled studies or writing, Knowledge travels through anecdote and tradition, but careful observation still exists. The group knows whether he is getting worse. His work is reduced, his food is adjusted, his sleeping place is near warmth but away from the worst smoke. Care consumes resources. That fact does not prevent care. You think of dentistry. There is no drill, filling, or anesthetic. Teeth are tools used to grip, soften material, and chew demanding food. Grit from processing can wear enamel. A cracked tooth may expose the inside and become infected. Pain can last for months. Yet people clean teeth in simple ways, pick between them, use fibrous plants, and learn which foods worsen pain. Again, life is neither a paradise of natural health nor constant misery. It is a landscape of risks managed with available knowledge. Your hand throbs beneath the bandage. The old woman unwraps it once more. Bleeding has slowed. The edges remain clean. She nods slightly and applies a fresh covering. You understand her message. Today, it is only a cut. Tomorrow, you check again. And the next day. There is no moment when danger is officially over. Survival depends on noticing change early. Outside, the water carriers return. One slipped at the bank, but saved the container. A little water was lost. Everyone drinks measured amounts. You want more. You do not take more. Self-control is easiest in modern life when replacement sits a few steps away. Here, restraint protects the next person's mouth. A child near the entrance makes a sharp sound. Every adult looks up.
Two human figures stand on the ridge, not members of your sleeping group. They have approached openly enough to be seen, but stopped outside spear range. One raises an empty hand. The shelter changes instantly. Children move toward the back. Tools that were lying casually are now within reach. The lead hunter steps forward, but does not lift his weapon. The visitors call out. Someone in your camp answers. The sounds are partly familiar. Perhaps dialect differs. Perhaps these are relatives from a neighboring band, people encountered at seasonal gatherings. The old woman comes to the entrance and studies their faces. Recognition softens her posture. Not complete trust. Recognition. The visitors approach. One carries a small bundle of excellent flint. The source lies many days away. The other wears perforated shells sewn onto clothing. Shells from a coast you will never see. Objects travel farther than most individuals. A stone can pass from group to group across hundreds of kilometers. 政治结束. A shell can move inland over generations. Pigment, beads, techniques, stories, and genes move along the same social routes. Your world is local, but it is not isolated. The visitors are given a place near the edge of the fire, warm enough to signal hospitality, but positioned where everyone can watch. Food is offered, not the largest piece, not nothing. Conversation begins. There is news of animals beyond the ridge. A stream has frozen near another camp. Someone is ill. Someone has died. A young adult may travel with them when the season changes, strengthening ties between groups. Information is exchanged before objects. This may be the most valuable trade of all. Where were horses seen? Is the eastern route blocked? Did strangers pass south? Are predators following the herds? Then goods are placed between them. Flint blades, a piece of antler, prepared pigment, perhaps dried food or a crafted ornament. There may be no fixed price. Exchange carries relationship. A gift creates memory and obligation. Exact repayment may come months later from another member of the network in a different form. This is social insurance. When one valley fails, connection to another may keep people alive. The visitors notice the horse meat. Your group notices their good stone. Everyone notices who offers first,
Who takes too much? Who speaks warmly? Who avoids another person's eyes? Human politics did not begin with palaces. It began around fires, where food was limited and memory was long. One visitor sees your bandaged hand and tells a short story with gestures. A cut, swelling, a plant crushed between stones, recovery. The old woman listens, asks questions, and examines a small dried sample from his pouch. She does not accept it automatically. Knowledge from strangers is useful, but trust must be evaluated. The plant is smelled, tasted in a minute amount, compared with something already known.
Perhaps it will be tried. Perhaps it will be rejected. Innovation often looks like this. Not a lone genius inventing in isolation, but one person noticing, another sharing, another testing, and a group remembering. The visitors stay less than an hour. Weather urges them home. Before leaving, one touches foreheads with the lead hunter. The other gives a shell bead to the child with beads in her hair. She stares at it as if given a star. Then they walk up the ridge and disappear. The camp exhales. Hospitality has succeeded. No conflict. New information. Renewed ties. Another emergency prevented before it existed. Daylight is already weakening. Near the entrance, the horsehide waits. If abandoned in a heap, it will stiffen, rot, and become useless. Several people spread it flesh side up over a frame and begin the exhausting work of scraping. You watch a curved stone tool travel across the inner surface. Fat and tissue gather ahead of its edge. The motion repeats. Push. Reset. Push. Reset. The worker's shoulder must burn, but she continues. Another person takes over before technique collapses from fatigue. Hide processing can involve many stages over days: cleaning, scraping, stretching, drying, re-wetting, working in oils or animal tissues, pulling, twisting, smoking, and softening, until material that wanted to become hard becomes flexible enough for clothing. The final garment hides all this labor. That is true of most technology. You notice the finished object and miss the chain of decisions inside it. A fitted coat implies measuring bodies without rulers. A seam implies cord, needle, holes, tension, and pattern. A waterproof container implies material knowledge. A spear implies forestry, stone fracture, adhesives, fibers, balance, and hunting strategy. Stone Age does not mean simple mines. It names the materials that survived for archaeologists to find.
Wood, cord, baskets, nets, clothing, medicinal plants, spoken language, and gestures usually vanish. The richest part of life leaves the faintest trace. Beside the hide workers, the man with the cough repairs a cloak. His needle is made from bone, polished smooth, with a carefully opened eye. Sinew thread passes through it. The stitches are small. Small stitches reduce gaps where wind enters. Tailored clothing changes what landscapes humans can inhabit. A hide merely draped over shoulders is not enough in severe cold. Needles are survival technology, as consequential as weapons. He sees you watching and hands the needle over. It is lighter than expected. The eye is tiny. Creating it without metal required patience and abrasion, not a single dramatic breakthrough. He takes it back and continues sewing. The child with the new shell bead sits beside him. She threads coarse fiber through a larger practice needle, tongue pressed against her lip.
正文结束。
The first attempt misses. The second tangles. The adult does not take over. He waits. On the fourth attempt, she succeeds.
Her face changes. That expression, the flash of private pride when a difficult motion finally works, needs no translation across 20,000 years. The sun lowers behind the ridge. Temperature falls almost immediately. Tasks outside are pulled inward. Fuel is stacked. Tools are counted. Water is covered. Meat is positioned where smoke and cold will protect it. Bedding is checked for dampness. No one wants to discover a missing necessity after dark. You step to the entrance one last time. The valley is blue-gray. Snow dusts the higher ground. The tracks made this morning are already softening. Somewhere beyond sight, wolves may have found the horse carcass. Ravens probably stand on it now, black against red. Your entire known world may extend across a few hundred kilometers through stories and travel, but daily life occupies a much smaller circle. This stream, this ridge, that stand of birch, the crossing where ice stays thin, the shelter used in spring, the hill where someone is buried. You may travel seasonally and meet many people across a lifetime. You are not chained to one cave. Groups move according to resources, relationships, weather, and tradition. A cave is not necessarily a permanent home. It is one station in a mobile map. Home is also the people carrying the same stories. The lead hunter joins you. He points toward the far valley, then makes a sweeping gesture. Perhaps he is describing the herd route. Perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps a childhood journey. You understand only pieces, but shared attention is enough for a moment. You both watch light leave the land. Modern darkness is rarely complete. Cities stain clouds orange. LEDs wait in every room. A screen can create noon at midnight. Here, sunset is a border. On one side, humans move through the landscape. On the other, the landscape moves around humans. You return to the fire. Everyone gathers closer. The fire grows. Light moves across faces and disappears into the black ceiling. Horse meat cooks on stones and wooden supports arranged near the heat. Roots sit beneath ash. Fat melts into a small container. The meal is larger than breakfast. Children receive pieces cut to manageable size. The injured and nursing are considered. A portion is set aside for tomorrow. Another may be reserved for relatives not currently here. Conversation becomes easier now that work slows. Language is fully human. It can express events that happened yesterday, plans for next season, people who are absent, things imagined but never seen. There is no reason to picture only grunts and gestures. Yet gesture remains powerful. A hunter retells the first failed approach. He raises his head like the stag, turns his ears, sniffs dramatically, and leaps sideways. People laugh. Then he imitates your late throw. More laughter. Your face becomes hot. But the story changes. He repeats the moment slowly, shows wind direction, demonstrates release, and places the youngest learner where he can see the angle. The joke is instruction. Embarrassment makes the lesson memorable. Next comes the horse. The rhythm quickens. Hands become running hooves. A child strikes two bones together to mark beats. When the spear lands, several people voice the impact at once. The event is being compressed into a form that can be carried. Tomorrow's version may be slightly different. In 10 years, your poor throw at the stag may vanish, while the successful horse hunt remains. In a generation, the story may belong to an ancestor whose name means something to children not yet born. Memory is not video. It selects, shapes, and teaches. An older person interrupts to correct the location of the wind. The hunter accepts the correction. Accuracy matters because someone may repeat the tactic. Stories are entertainment, but entertainment is not only entertainment. It synchronizes the group. It rehearses danger safely. It defines admirable behavior. It remembers debts. It turns private experience into shared knowledge. The youngest child begins telling a story too. Most of it is incomprehensible. It involves the shell bead, a raven, and an enormous gesture that nearly hits someone in the face. Adults listen. They laugh at the right moments. The child is practicing more than speech. She is learning how to hold attention, sequence events, read listeners, and belong. The first language is attention. Before a child learns the words for track, flame, pain, or love, the child learns what other people look toward. After eating, the old woman brings out red ochre. It is a soft mineral rich in iron, valuable enough to be collected and carried. She grinds it on a flat stone. The sound is quiet and rough. Powder gathers beneath her hand.
She mixes it with a little liquid and fat until it becomes paste. Nearby, someone prepares black pigment from charcoal or mineral material. A small lamp may burn animal fat with a fiber wick, giving steadier light than an open flame in a protected space. The wall already carries marks, lines, dots, hand shapes, animals suggested by contour and shadow. Not every occupied shelter was painted. Not every image had one meaning. Some may relate to ritual, story, identity, teaching, altered states, place, or acts whose categories no longer exist. You want a single answer because modern museums put labels beside objects. The wall gives none. The old woman studies a natural bulge in the limestone. She draws along it, allowing rock to become the shoulder of an animal. A line added by the human hand completes a form that firelight makes move. This is not childish realism. It is observation refined by people who watch animals for survival. The curve of a belly, the angle of a leg, the heavy front of a bison. Details carry motion and species. She hands pigment to someone younger. Learning continues. Then she gestures to you. Your injured hand cannot be pressed flat, so she takes the other. Pigment coats your palm. It is cool and gritty. She guides it to the wall. You press. Stone touches every ridge of skin. When you pull away, a red hand remains. Your hand. Not a portrait of your face, not a written name. A direct boundary between body and world. 20,000 years later, another human may place a gloved hand near it and notice the size of your fingers. They may wonder whether you were a man, a woman, an adolescent, an artist, a visitor, or a participant in something sacred. They will not know that your right hand hurt that evening. They will not know who laughed when the pigment smeared at one fingertip. They will see the mark and understand only the most important fact. Someone was here. Art is often described as what humans do after basic needs are met. But basic needs are never permanently met here. Winter remains. Hunger returns. Tools break. Predators wait. And still people decorate bodies, shape beads, carve bone, use rare colors, make music, dance, bury the dead, and create images in places where no practical task requires them. Art is not outside survival. It helps answer a different kind of danger. The danger that experience remains isolated, that grief has no form, that a group has no shared symbol, that a life leaves no trace. The mood around the fire changes. Someone brings out a small carved object. It might be bone, antler, ivory, or stone. Its surface is worn from handling. Several people touch it before it returns to its keeper. A name is spoken. Then another. You realize they are talking about the dead. One person died during a previous winter. Another did not return from water. A child lived only a few days.
Someone older is buried near a place the group passes seasonally. Death is common enough to be familiar, but familiarity does not make it light. People grieve because attachment is not a modern invention. An empty sleeping place changes the shape of night. A missing voice changes a story. A tool keeps the curve made by its owner's hand. Some Paleolithic burials include pigment, tools, ornaments, or careful body placement. Interpretation is difficult, but care is visible. Time and effort were spent on someone who could provide no material return. That act tells you something. The group understands a person as more than a working body. A song begins. Low, repetitive, only a few tones at first. Others join. You do not know whether it is mourning, memory, ritual, or all three. Modern categories separate religion, art, medicine, history, and music. Here, one act can be all of them without needing separate names. The rhythm changes breathing. Voices align. Grief that belonged to individuals becomes something held by the circle. You think of the impossible chain behind your own existence. Every direct ancestor survived long enough to create the next link. Not because each was strongest. Some were carried, some were protected, some survived by luck, some were fed during illness, some found strangers willing to share fire. The chain is not a line of heroic hunters. It is a net of care. The song ends. For several seconds, no one speaks. The fire settles inward with a soft collapse. Then a child asks for more food. Someone laughs. Life resumes beside memory, as it always does. Not every moment is harmonious. Two adults reach for the same prepared blade. One pulls it closer. The other objects. Words become sharper. Their voices rise. The disagreement may be about the blade, but it carries older weight. Who contributed to the hunt? Whose tool was broken? Who received more fat? Who promised something and failed? Children stop moving. Violence within a small group is uniquely dangerous. There are no spare members. An injured adult weakens everyone. A feud can split the camp at the worst season. Yet anger, status, jealousy, and resentment are human too. The lead hunter does not immediately impose a command. The old woman speaks first. Another adult makes a joke that releases a little tension. The toolmaker produces a second blade, not identical, but usable. One disputant turns away. The other continues muttering, then accepts the replacement. Conflict is contained, not erased. This matters. Cooperation does not mean everyone is kind all the time. It means groups develop ways to prevent ordinary friction from becoming catastrophic. Reputation, kinship, humor, mediation, temporary distance, gift exchange, collective disapproval, and, when necessary, leaving. In a mobile society, people may have options beyond obedience to a single ruler. But leaving also costs access to food, knowledge, protection, and family. Freedom and dependence exist together. The disputed blade is eventually used to trim a spear shaft. The crisis shrinks into an ordinary evening. You notice how quickly everyone returns to work. There is no expectation that all feelings must be resolved before survival continues. The fire needs fuel, whether you are angry or not. Full darkness surrounds the shelter. The fire's light reaches only a few meters beyond the entrance. Past that boundary, the world is no longer visible. It announces itself through sound. Grass moving, snow falling from a branch, a distant call, the scrape of something on stone. At night, your imagination becomes a predator too. Wolves may approach, curious and calculating. Hyenas can break bone with jaws more powerful than yours. A cave lion is larger than any cat you have encountered in modern life. Bears may use shelters, though season and species matter.
Humans are dangerous as well. Fire reduces risk, but it is not a force field. Weapons are kept near. Fuel is inside the protected area. The entrance is watched. Meat is positioned so its scent and access do not invite disaster more than necessary. Sleeping arrangements reflect warmth, care, and responsibility. Children and vulnerable people lie farther in. Bodies share heat. Hides overlap. Someone will remain awake or wake regularly to tend the fire. Tonight, because your hand prevents heavier work tomorrow, the first watch is yours. The group settles. One by one, conversations end. A baby fusses, feeds, then quiets. The coughing man turns away from the smoke. Someone places a warm stone wrapped in material near cold feet. You sit beside the fire. Your job is simple. Do not sleep. Do not let the flame die. Listen. Simple is not easy. Fatigue arrives as weight behind the eyes. Heat makes you drowsy. The repetitive movement of flames invites attention to drift. You add one branch. Too much fuel at once can smother embers or waste the supply. Too little risks the fire collapsing while your mind wanders. You manage it like a living thing. Air, fuel, spacing, timing. Minutes stretch. Without a clock, you measure time by fuel, stars, bodily fatigue, changes in wind, and the movement of others in sleep. The moon is hidden. Stars beyond the entrance are fierce and numerous. You recognize patterns not as distant balls of plasma, but as seasonal companions, directions, stories, and signals. The sky is another memory system. Certain stars rise when cold deepens. Others tell travelers where they are facing. Their movement predicts the approach of dawn. You know the heavens more intimately than most modern people and understand their physical nature less. Knowledge is always uneven. A stone clicks beyond the firelight. You sit upright. The sound is small, but it does not repeat like falling debris. You reach for the nearest spear with your uninjured hand. Another click. Then breathing. Low, wet, close. One of the sleepers opens his eyes immediately. He was not as deeply asleep as you thought. You point toward the entrance. He wakes the lead hunter without a word. 3 adults rise. A burning branch is lifted. Sparks trail downward. At the edge of light, 2 eyes shine. They vanish, appear farther left. A wolf. Perhaps more beyond sight. The animal has smelled blood and cooking. It may never have been hunted by modern weapons. It has its own history with human camps. Opportunity, danger, scraps, stones, flame. The humans shout together, not random panic. A coordinated wall of sound. Spears strike rock. The burning branch is thrown short of the animal, showering sparks. The eyes disappear. Everyone listens. The wolf may have retreated 10 meters or 100. Its absence from sight proves nothing. More fuel goes on the fire.
No one complains about the cost now. For half an hour, several people remain awake. The threat creates a problem. Lost sleep weakens tomorrow. Burning extra fuel means gathering more. Moving the meat could expose someone. Ignoring the wolf could invite a closer approach. Safety is never free. At last, a howl rises from far down the valley. Another answers. The pack is moving away. People return beneath hides, though sleep comes slowly. You remain at the fire, heart still beating too fast. Fear has sharpened the world. Every ember is distinct. Every shadow has depth. You understand why monsters fill human stories. Night gives real teeth to imagination. The camp sleeps again. You stare into flame. Without messages, music, or endless information to fill attention, thought does not become empty. It turns toward the materials available. The hunt, your cut, the strangers, the handprint, the people named in the song. You replay your failed throw and feel embarrassment again. Then you rehearse the correction. Shoulder lower, release earlier, aim where the body will be. The brain practices while the body sits still. You wonder what the horse experienced. You wonder whether the dead hear songs. You wonder where the stranger's shells came from. You wonder what lies beyond every route anyone has described. Curiosity does not wait for laboratories. People here experiment constantly. What happens if this stone is heated? Does this wood bend better after steaming? Will a different binding hold? Which pigment survives rain? What trail forms when animals are pushed from another direction? Why did one patient recover while another died? Most experiments leave no trace. Some fail. Some discoveries disappear when their keeper dies. Others move through networks and become traditions so ordinary that no one remembers an inventor. You live in a world without formal science, but not without hypothesis, observation, error, and revision. The fire pops. A coal rolls beyond the stone ring. You push it back quickly and cover a tiny spark on the bedding with your foot. Another disaster prevented. Your world feels small because you measure it on a map. But from inside, it is inexhaustibly detailed. You know individual bends of the stream, places where a certain root grows, rock faces that catch morning sun, animal paths invisible to visitors, the smell before snow, the exact voice of a relative in darkness. You may never see an ocean. You may never meet more than a few hundred people. But you are not living in an empty world. You are living in a world saturated with meaning. Around midnight, a sound comes from beyond the ridge. Low, rough, almost like a cough forced through an enormous chest. Your skin tightens before your mind identifies it. The sound comes again. A cave lion. Not necessarily at the entrance. Distance is difficult to judge at night. It may be 100 meters away, or much farther, the valley carrying sound. But it is close enough. The lead hunter wakes, then the others. No one speaks loudly now. Wolf defense relied on making the camp seem dangerous. With a large cat whose exact position is unknown, attention comes first. The children are pulled inward. Firewood is added. Flames rise, making the darkness beyond them even more opaque. You hear nothing for a long time. Then a short roar farther left. The lion is moving across the valley, not directly toward you. Probably. That word is the limit of your safety. Probably. Humans like certainty because certainty calms the nervous system. The natural world offers probability. The clouds will probably clear. The herd will probably cross here. The wound will probably heal. The lion is probably leaving. Skill improves the odds. It does not remove chance. Everyone stays awake until the sound fades completely. 正本结束. No one treats fear as weakness. Fear is information. The problem is not feeling it. The problem is allowing it to become uncontrolled action. When the camp settles again, another adult takes the watch beside you. Your shoulders lower for the first time in several minutes. Shared fear is lighter than private fear. You are finally told to rest. The new firekeeper takes your place. You crawl beneath hides beside two others. There is no private bedroom, no locked door, no expectation of silence. Someone's foot presses against your calf. Child turns and places an arm across your chest. The hides smell of smoke and bodies. Your bandaged hand must remain outside at an uncomfortable angle. You think sleep will come instantly. It does not. Your body remains alert from the lion's call. The fire brightens and dims through closed eyelids. Every cough becomes the beginning of danger. Eventually, thought breaks apart. You dream. Perhaps dreams shape stories.
Perhaps people discuss them as warnings, visits, nonsense, or encounters with another realm. Human brains seek pattern in the involuntary theater of sleep. You wake when someone steps over you, then sleep again. Wake when wood cracks. Sleep. Wake because your injured hand pulses. Sleep in fragments. The ideal of 8 uninterrupted hours belongs to a world of protected rooms, controlled temperature, and clocks. Here, night is shared, responsive, and porous. Yet exhaustion finds its way into the body. For a while, you disappear. You wake into darkness again. For one confused second, you expect your bed. Then smoke enters your nose, and memory returns. The fire is low but healthy. A watcher sits beside it, rubbing tired eyes. Outside, wind has weakened. You sit up. Your hand is stiff. The bandage is dry. When loosened, the wound remains closed enough. No spreading redness yet. No heat beyond what injury explains. One night tells you very little. But so far, you are fortunate. The watcher hands responsibility back to you while stepping outside briefly with another adult. Never alone. Not after the lion. You feed the embers. This moment resembles the beginning of the day. Cold, darkness, breathing bodies, fire near death. But you are different. Yesterday, the shelter felt primitive and chaotic. Now, every object has begun to reveal a relationship. The fuel piles are ordered time. The hides are stored labor. The tools are frozen decisions. The wall is memory. The sleeping bodies are insurance, obligation, irritation, love, skill, and future. You came here imagining a contest between a lone human and nature. There is no lone human. The individual survives inside a web of other minds. Someone knew how to make your clothing. Someone carried you when you were small. Someone taught you which water to drink. Someone trusted you with the fire. Even the spear in your hand contains strangers.
Human beings did not dominate the planet because each person became independently powerful. They became powerful because learning could accumulate between people. The oldest woman wakes. She adds a dense piece of wood to the fire and begins preparing food from yesterday's meat, saved roots, and fat. Others stir. Before the new day fully arrives, take inventory of what these people know. How to carry an ember. How to create flame from prepared materials. How to distinguish dry fuel from wood that only looks dry. How to predict wind inside a valley. How to find water beneath ice. How to approach without sending scent ahead. How to read hoof depth, broken plants, dung, hair, blood, and bird behavior. How to throw accurately while cold and exhausted. How to kill without being killed by the animal. How to open a carcass. How to recognize unhealthy organs. How to preserve meat. How to render and store fat. How to crack bone for marrow. How to turn hide into clothing. How to split tendon into thread. How to make adhesive. How to shape stone by controlled fracture. How to straighten a shaft. How to polish bone. How to drill an eye in a needle. How to fit a garment without a measuring tape. How to identify edible plants in different seasons. How to process bitter or toxic foods. How to soothe pain. How to watch a wound. How to assist birth. How to comfort the dying. How to raise children who can learn without written instructions. How to negotiate with strangers. How to remember favors. how to contain conflict, how to navigate by land and sky, how to make meaning when meaning is not guaranteed. Survival is not one skill. It is hundreds of small skills distributed across a group, repeated until they live below conscious thought. You are more technologically powerful than anyone in this shelter. Give you a working phone and a network, and you can access more information than their whole world contains. But strip away the systems supporting you, and your personal competence collapses quickly. That is not proof that modern people are weak. It reveals what civilization is. Civilization is stored cooperation. Your tap contains engineers, pipes, treatment plants, laws, maintenance crews, chemistry, pumps, and energy. Your warm room contains mines, factories, grids, standards, transport, and generations of accumulated knowledge. You do not survive alone either. Your clan is simply too large to see. Gray light begins to gather outside. Before you leave, let go of two opposite fantasies. The first says this life is constant misery, cold, violence, ignorance, and early death, with nothing we would recognize as happiness. That cannot explain the laughter, ornaments, careful burials, music, play, affection, long learning, or beauty made in firelight. The second fantasy says this life is natural freedom, healthy bodies, abundant leisure, perfect community, and harmony with the land. That cannot explain infected teeth, infant loss, hunger, injury, smoke-damaged lungs, conflict, dangerous births, failed hunts, predators, and winters that do not care how wise a group may be. The past is not obligated to serve as either warning or paradise. It was a real place, filled with real people. Some mornings were joyful, some were boring, some were terrifying. Some people were generous, some selfish, some funny, some exhausting. Some skilled at work and poor at relationships. Some children adored the hunt. Others preferred pigment, plants, stories, or tools. Human variety is older than history. You have spent one imagined day with one imagined group. Details would change across thousands of kilometers, many cultures, and centuries of climate. There was no single Paleolithic lifestyle. Coasts differed from inland valleys. Summer differed from winter. Forest differed from steppe. One group's tradition differed from another's. What remains is the central fact. They were not unfinished versions of you. They were complete versions of themselves. The same broad-shouldered hunter walks to the entrance. He studies the sky. Cloud has broken in the east. Snow covers the path lightly. The air is colder, but wind has fallen. He looks toward the valley where yesterday's carcass lies. Ravens rise in the distance. The location is occupied now. Perhaps wolves, perhaps smaller scavengers. Returning will require caution. The group discusses it. Gestures map approaches. Risks are weighed. There is no ending music in their lives. Yesterday's victory becomes today's problem. The meat must be managed. Fuel replaced. Water carried. Your hand checked. The cough monitored. Children taught. Tools repaired. Relations maintained. Survival is not a climax. It is maintenance. The child with the shell bead comes to the entrance. Frost turns her breath white. An adult closes the gap in her collar and sends her back toward warmth. That tiny gesture contains the whole human project. Notice danger. Protect what comes next. Pass on what works. Now, step away from this single morning. Let 10,000 years pass. Not in an instant for the people living them. For them, each year remains long. Each child grows one day at a time. But from your view, climate shifts. The great cold loosens. Ice sheets retreat. Sea levels rise and drown old coastlines. Plant communities move. Animals move with them. Some large species disappear under pressure from changing habitat, human hunting, ecological disruption, or combinations still debated. Mammoths vanish from most of their range. Cave lions disappear. Woolly rhinoceroses are gone. Forests expand into places once open. Human groups adapt again. They fish different waters, hunt different animals, gather different plants, make different tools, occupy new landscapes, and reshape old traditions.
In several regions, much later, people begin relying more heavily on cultivated plants and managed animals. This does not happen once, everywhere, or according to a single plan. Seeds are selected. Wild grasses change under repeated human choice. Animals are controlled, bred, protected, and slaughtered. Settlements become more permanent in some places. Food surplus can support larger populations, specialists, monuments, rulers, soldiers, priests, traders, and scribes. It can also support inequality, crowd disease, hard repetitive labor, taxation, famine tied to crop failure, and organized violence on larger scales. Progress does not move as a clean staircase. Every solution creates new dependencies. Agriculture can feed more people per landscape while narrowing diets and increasing work in some contexts. Cities create extraordinary cooperation while concentrating waste and infection. Writing preserves knowledge while enabling accounting, bureaucracy, debt, and command across distance.
Metal cuts better than stone, but requires mines, fuel, craft, and networks. Each technology extends the human body and ties it more tightly to other humans. Villages become towns, towns become states. Roads bind regions, ships cross seas. Printing multiplies memory. Engines convert ancient sunlight into motion. Electricity moves through wire. Medicine sees the invisible enemy. Machines speak across continents. Satellites look down on the valley. And one day, a descendant of Ice Age people sits in a climate-controlled room, staring at a screen, trying to imagine what it felt like to wake beside a dying fire. They will get many details wrong. So did we. Archaeology works from fragments. Stone survives. Bone sometimes survives. Gesture does not. Smell does not. The exact sound of a joke does not. Most of the past is absent. But one thing is clear. The people beside that fire were human. Fully, completely, not waiting for history to begin. Now, blink.
The cave is gone. The fire is gone. The cold is gone. You are in a chair, or a room, or a vehicle. Air may be warm. Light comes from electricity. Somewhere nearby, clean water waits behind a handle. Food can arrive without your knowing the animal, field, factory, driver, or distance behind it. Your hands are clean. Your clothes are soft. The darkness outside does not belong entirely to predators. For a moment, do not treat these things as ordinary. Listen for the quiet labor inside them. The room around you is a shelter built by people you will never meet. The device carrying this voice contains materials from across the planet, shaped by accumulated knowledge no single person possesses. Your life is supported by an enormous invisible camp. You are still dependent. You have simply moved the fire farther away. And somewhere deep in the design of your body is the legacy of those who managed older dangers. The attention that snaps toward a sound at night. The comfort of faces gathered around warm light. The urge to tell what happened. The instinct to imitate, teach, decorate, remember, and belong. You are the descendant of people who kept fires alive through winters you cannot imagine. Every direct ancestor in the chain made it far enough. Some hunted, some gathered, some made tools, some remembered routes. Some survived wounds because others fed them. Some carried children through snow. Some welcomed strangers. Some left dangerous groups. Some sang for the dead. Some stayed awake while everyone else slept.
The inheritance they gave you is not only strength, it is flexibility, attention, cooperation, memory. The ability to imagine what does not yet exist, then make it real with other people. 20,000 years ago, someone pressed a hand against stone. The person did not know your name. They did not know cities, engines, vaccines, satellites, or screens. They could not imagine the systems surrounding you.
But they knew cold, they knew hunger, they knew fear. They knew the relief of another person returning with food. They knew the pain of an empty sleeping place. They knew that children must be taught. They knew that fire must be fed before it becomes ash. They knew how to leave a mark. Look at your own hand. The bones are nearly the same. The tendons move in the same arrangement. The palm opens the same way. Across 20,000 years, place it against theirs. Not as a superior being looking backward, as one human greeting another. They kept the fire burning. Now it is in your hands. What you do with it is up to you.